Please be seated. Well, I would like to begin by bringing you greetings from the church in Canada. I'm no representative in any official way, of course, but whenever brothers and sisters meet from different parts of the world, I always think it's nice to share greetings. And I can tell you that there are many, many people in Canada who are mindful of you and who pray for you on a regular basis. And I bring you greetings in particular from the Anglican Church of Canada and from Wycliffe College, which is a training school for Anglican clergy in Canada. I would like also to thank the Venerable Priscilla Johnson, the Reverend Mother, for extending me the privilege and trust of sharing the pulpit this morning. I am grateful to her for her courtesy, her kindness, and her friendship. So thank you, Mother. Over the past few weeks, we have been looking at the Gospel of John. In fact, since the beginning of Christmas, or since the beginning of Easter, about 6 weeks ago, we have been looking at John's Gospel. And we began by looking at John chapter 20 and 21, the story of the resurrection. And then we've been hopping around in different passages over the past several weeks, looking at important passages from John's Gospel. And today we come to the story that I just read, the story of Jesus' healing the man at the pool. Now, if you're like me and you've been a Christian for a while, you think you know what the story is all about. And we do know what it's all about in one sense. But there are some questions that remain about this passage that are very curious. And I want us to think about some of those questions this morning and to try to come to some answers that will be helpful for us in our daily lives. But I want to begin by sort of zooming the camera back, as it were, and looking at the Gospel of John as a whole, because this scene plays a role in John's overall Gospel. John tells us that the Gospel was written, according to chapter 20 and verse 31, so that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, and so that by believing you might have life in his name. So John is, we're told, an evangelist. One commentator says John's purpose is not so much to present new evidence as it is to clarify issues on which the evidence will either be accepted or rejected. He writes to confront the reader with the necessity to believe. So John is giving us an invitation to new life in Jesus. And he's giving us that invitation by way of inviting us to believe in Jesus and to believe that Jesus is the Christ. So that's the point of the gospel, that we might come to faith in Jesus Christ. And this story plays a role in John's attempt to get us to believe. And as I was thinking about how best to set the background to the gospel this morning, I couldn't help but think of something that someone told me about the Gospels that I have always found helpful, and I would encourage you to keep it in mind whenever you look at the Gospels. And let me put the point this way. Jesus was a time traveler. Let me say it again. Jesus was a time traveler. Perhaps you've seen one of those movies about someone who invents a time machine and they're able to go back in time and they bring a piece of the future into what was then the present. That is what Jesus did when he came to earth as the incarnate Son of God. He brought the future kingdom of God when everything is going to be made well, when every sickness is going to be healed, when every wrong is going to be made right. And he brought it back into first century Palestine. And Jesus, by performing healing miracles and by raising the dead and by preaching the good news of justice and salvation, he brought a glimpse, he brought a snapshot of that future kingdom into the present. Perhaps you've heard the expression, this is a person who is ahead of his time. Oh, that sister of ours, she's way ahead of her time. What do they mean by that? Well, they mean that this is a person who is thinking ahead. It's like they have brought some of the future into the present. And so as Jesus begins going through the Gospel of John, he introduces us to the kingdom of God. And he gives us a taste of what life will be like in the future. And he tells us that for believers, the future has already begun. bringing new joy. And that happens when he turns the water into wine. The kingdom of God is a kingdom of joy. In chapter 2, when he clears the temple, he brings new worship. In chapter 3, when he speaks with Nicodemus, he brings new birth. When he tells us that John has been surpassed by him, he introduces himself as the new leader. And when he talks with the Samaritans, he introduces new family. And then finally, leading up to chapter 5, when he heals the son of the official from Capernaum, he teaches us that he brings us new life. Just a moment, I want to take a call. Yes, hello? Oh, I'm sorry. This really isn't a very good time to call. I'm giving a sermon right now. Pardon me? I'm sorry. You have to talk to Mother Priscilla during the week. You're looking for a job? Your name is what? Joshua? Do we have any jobs available? Not at the present time. I'm sorry. What is it you wanted to do? And please hurry. I'm in the middle of a sermon. This is kind of embarrassing. I think it might even be televised. You want to bring new life to the people of the Gambia, starting with St. Paul's Church. Well, goodness, would we all like to do that? Who do you think you are? Sorry, how do we know you can do that? And please hurry, this is embarrassing. Listen, that sounds good. Why don't you just send Mother Priscilla, send it to her address, your resume, and also maybe a list of qualifications, diplomas, whatever else. Please. And don't call again. Thank you. I'm really sorry for that. Where were we? I was talking about Jesus bringing new life. Yes, right. Okay, so we come to the beginning of chapter 5, and as we begin chapter 5, we come to a part in John's Gospel when John has presented Jesus as this giver of new life. He says, if you believe in me, the kingdom will begin. I've healed the sick. I've turned water into wine. I'm introducing this new life. And at the beginning of chapter 5, we're told that the Jewish people begin to wonder about his qualifications. I don't imagine anyone is really surprised by the phone call. It's part of the sermon. And the point, of course, is that the Jewish people began to say, okay, you want to bring new life to the world? Tell us, by what authority do you do these things? We want to see your qualifications. We want to see your references. Now, I haven't been in the Gambia all that long, but I have a sense that the Gambian people like diplomas and certificates and awards. Am I right? It helps to know that you're qualified for a job, right? I ran into somebody who had his bachelor in landscape architecture, and I noticed his business card. It said Robert Porter, BLA, and he was kind of proud of himself, and sometimes I like to put somebody in their place, so I said to him, if you had 2 more Bachelor of Landscape Architecture degrees, your business card would say Robert Porter, blah, blah, blah. Well, sometimes it's helpful to have qualifications, because then we know that you can do the job. Now, Jesus wants to bring new life to the world, and the Jewish people's question, and maybe the question that you have, and that I have this morning, is, can you do the job? What qualifications do you have? And in chapters 5 to 10 of John's Gospel, the Jewish people bring out the fact that he has no rabbinic training, this Jesus. This whole business of him coming from Nazareth doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. They don't seem to know that he was born in Bethlehem. And so they begin to question his diplomas and his certificates and say, show us the data. And Jesus responds in chapters 5 to 10 by saying, I may not have any certificates, but I can tell you and demonstrate that I can do what I say. I turned water into wine. I told Nicodemus